The first question that usually comes up is, what's with this militia bit? Because it says a well-regulated militia right at the beginning. In the time, again, historical context, when this was written, the United States, as we know it, was 13 colonies. And they had just put in, very recently, the ability for the United States to have a standing army, which had never had before. And the people who are our founding fathers and the people from which we spring, not just the founding fathers, but the colonists themselves and the early Americans, they didn't have a standing army to begin with. And they were protected by standing militias in states, in communities, both statewide and locally. So when the Redcoats first started coming, and Paul Revere's ride, he was going to alert the local militias to stand up that the Redcoats were coming to try to confiscate arms and munitions and gunpowder from a store in Lexington and Concord. The early days of the Republic, before it was a republic, when there were just 13 colonies banded together by a loose affiliation, George Washington had to continually plead. The number of letters that he and his generals wrote to different governors in the colonies, please send your militias to join the Continental Army. Send the militias to help support us. The militias were key, they were vital, and they were the backbone of the security of this nation.
I mean, they relied, the states had to rely upon them, that they did not have it. And, so also putting in context and building upon what Rob was saying, the issue regarding the militias that, before we had the Constitution, we had the Articles of Confederation, where the Article of Confederation actually showed the weakness, where it kept a very decentralized militia. And because of that, it exposed how difficult it would be, because you would need to have a state agree in order to provide protection for another state. And the Articles of Confederation sort of reinforced when the revision in the Constitution came up and the amendments came up and the Second Amendment came up, that exposed the weakness and how much we really needed this amendment for that purpose.
So in the Constitutional Convention, and then thereafter, when we had in 1791 the Bill of Rights put forward, I believe it was Madison was particularly interested to make sure that the anti-federalists, the ones who were really scared about centralized government, they did not want a big government. They did not want a centralized government, because they had seen the rot and the problems that it would ensue from that when they were back in Europe. England, Spain, France, top-down heavy. They would send their own troops against their own people all the time to put down this and put down that and suppress this. The anti-federalists did not want a large federal government, and they wanted to keep the rights of the people to bear arms, to protect themselves locally in the state and more locally within counties and then personally. So this Second Amendment sprang largely from that desire. Madison knew that the United States was going to be able to keep a standing army, or at least start one, but they wanted to protect against that army, believe it or not, and to appease and to understand the concerns raised by the anti-federalists, to make sure that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
And the whole purpose of it was to protect themselves from the tyranny of their own government. That's really what it came down to. And that's why that is a central issue throughout the Second Amendment, that the prefatory statement, I got it, the prefatory statement regarding a well-regulated militia.
You did a good job with that word.
That is, people get stuck on that. And that's really just sort of putting it again in context. And as we talk about later on, in the Supreme Court cases that came up, including Heller and some other, the progeny that came after that, and other ones before that, precedent before that, that they really focused on that issue where they said everybody was focusing on the well-regulated militia, how that people are saying the only reason why people should have these type of weapons is the army, because that's what they were meant for. It's like, no, this was because we want to keep a well-regulated militia to defend ourselves against evil, personal evil, as well as tyranny of our own government. That's why this is a personal right.
Shut up and sit down.
Thanks for listening to The Republic, If You Can Keep It podcast. Join Rob and Lou in our next episode as we continue our riveting discussions on the most important topics affecting our great republic. Drop a line for topics you want to discuss, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.